Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Boston Balling. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut. As you can see, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube right now, I am currently by myself, which is kind of a first. I don't remember the last time I did an episode solo of the show, but I do remember doing it one time because I had so many thoughts on all the Boston sports teams, and I really wanted to just get all of those thoughts out at once. And there was just no way I could have fit in having, a 45-minute or hour long show with a guest at that point, just because I had so many thoughts that I needed to share. So yeah, I'm excited to, bring you another episode by myself. I hope you're all having a great start to the week. Um, you know, Unfortunately, the weather by me has not been great the last few days. It's been cloudy and rainy, but what can you expect? It's New England. But I hope everyone's doing well. I'm excited to talk to you guys. The reason I have an episode that I'm doing by myself tonight is because I do have some information that I wanted to share. It's actually super exciting news. A lot of you, I'm sure, have seen it on my social media accounts. But for those of you who haven't, I am officially joining the Locked On Podcast Network as their new Locked On Red Sox host. So, for those of you who are unaware, the Locked On Podcast Network is the number one daily sports podcast network. They are growing constantly. They're already super established and super well known. They have a show for every major sports team out there. So, whoever your favorite NFL team is, NBA team is, NHL team or MLB team, you can find a Locked On show about that team with experts who really, really know that team and are passionate about talking about that team. So I highly recommend checking out their website, some of their shows if you haven't yet. The shows do happen Monday through Friday, so I'll be dropping an episode Monday through Friday about the Red Sox, their season. I know, obviously they're in a bit of a struggle right now, so obviously, it might not be the ideal time to be talking about the Red Sox. However, if any of you follow me on social media and you know me well, you know that I can talk about my favorite teams anytime, any day, whether they're playing well, whether they're playing poorly, and I will turn it into a positive. So that's what I'm hoping to bring to the next show is just really, showing positivity and trying to take positive angles on things that, a lot of people wouldn't look at positively. Because I think it's important to understand that at the end of the day, it is sports and they're supposed to bring you joy and you're supposed to have fun with them. And, obviously our teams can break our hearts, Celtics. But, at the end of the day, we love our teams and we watch them because we enjoy watching them. So I want to bring, a perspective to the Locked On Red Sox show that is fun and that, can give people something to be optimistic about even when times are tough for the team. So, the reason I wanted to deliver that to my Boston Balling audience personally is because I got my start because of you guys and I got my start because of Boston Balling. I mean, obviously, having opportunities at other companies within the media industry helped me to really get my start in the industry, but I really did get established with my following and what I have going on because of Boston Balling. And I have all of you to thank for that, for just going on this crazy journey with me the last 2.5 years of what Boston Balling was and, hopefully what it'll continue to be, and just really helping to show your support constantly all the time for me and my content, because it really does mean a lot to me to just have people who are always in my corner, people who are always coming to me on social media asking for my opinion on something going on in Boston sports and trusting, my feedback and my input on certain things that are happening, or just tweeting at me saying how much they love my show and how much, they enjoy tuning in every week and how they just love hearing my insight on what's going on, or even just people who will promote my content on their social media. I know a lot of my guests have been great with doing that. And anybody who's tuned in to that enjoys the content, I see a lot of people retweeting my stuff when I share it or sharing on their Instagram story, which I absolutely love. Social media is a great tool to promote yourself if you're ever looking to start your own show. And obviously, all the people who have reached out to me asking for advice on starting a podcast, there's a lot of different things that I can say and a lot of different angles that I can take to answer that question. But if you want to be a successful podcast host, The most important thing is to know yourself and know your identity. What can you bring to a show that other people who host a show on the same teams as you are bringing? Because, you guys know there's a lot of sports podcasts out there, a lot of podcasts that specifically just go into Boston sports, like I talk about on my show. And, you know, a lot of them can be similar and a lot of them can be different, but it's all a matter of how you formulate your show to want to bring people back to your show and ask, why would somebody want to come to me and listen to my show instead of going to another Red Sox based show or Celtics based show or Patriots or Bruins? It's really important to know your identity and understand whatever it is that you're talking about really well. So if you really want to have a successful podcast and you're really passionate about something that you want to do and you're set on it, go for it. It can be nerve-wracking. I know for me at first when I started Boston Balling, I was like, is anybody going to listen to this? Like, who really cares about my opinion on sports? I'm just a random girl who loves talking Boston sports. But the following it's developed has been tremendous, and I am super surprised in the best way possible, and I've just loved every step of it. But it's because of the passion that I have for these teams. So find what you're passionate about and something that you can talk about all day, every day, and not get bored. I mean, I have a good friend who loves talking about movies. That's all he talks about a lot is just, basically doing movie reviews. And I keep saying you should start a podcast where you're reviewing movies. And, he might do it and run with it, which would be super cool. But just knowing your niche and knowing what you love to do and what you can talk about all day, every day, that's how I got to where I'm at with Boston Balling now. And, obviously it's been over 100 episodes, which is crazy to think about. A lot of guests that have come through and stepped into the studio with me and uh talked to me virtually about what's going on in Boston sports. A lot of different personalities. I've learned so much from these people who have come onto the show, heard a lot of different perspectives, and that all is part of what makes it so rewarding and has made it so successful. And everybody, I owe all of you a thank you for that and for just keeping my confidence up, because, growing up, I wasn't always the most confident, and even through high school, I was really not that confident. I knew since I was younger that I wanted to do something with sports. I've always been passionate about sports. I have my family to thank for that. My dad, my cousins are all huge sports fans and kind of growing up into a sports family, and my grandfather always having season tickets to UConn basketball and football games and being able to just watch games growing up. There's a lot of memories there, and I've always loved sports, so I always knew I wanted to do something with it, but I wasn't really confident in myself growing up to the point where I felt like I could actually make it happen. Um, and then when I went to college, I was studying television and radio. For those of you who are not aware of that, when I went to Ithaca College, I was studying that and loved it, loved the classes I took. I got a bunch of good internships, which really helped me get to where I am today. I interned with quite a few different companies when I was in college within the media space to really learn more about being in that field. Got my first job out of college at ESPN and enjoyed it. I was there for a while. I met some great people and learned a lot for sure from the people I was working with at ESPN. And then unfortunately was part of a mass COVID layoff at the end of 2020. And that was tough because obviously sports were on a pause during the pandemic and the company as a whole took a hit, but you don't really expect it to happen to you until it does. So that was discouraging for sure, too. Like, I had really gained a lot of confidence, I'd say, when I was in college from just being surrounded by great and supportive people and helping to really find my path and my passion. And really, when I got that job at ESPN, was at the point where I was like, okay, this is a great job in the media industry, like working in sports. This is what I want to do. ESPN is the place to work. And when you are part of a layoff like that, it can get discouraging because you're like, well, what do I do next? What's my next step? And that's when Boston Balling came into the picture. I mean, I have a good friend of mine, Courtney Harden, to thank. Shout out to him, who invited me to be a guest on his podcast when I was working at ESPN to talk about my career path and where I was at and to offer advice to people who might want to go into the sports media field. And just give them some insight as to how they can get there. So I was a guest on Courtney's podcast, and then when I was on Courtney's podcast, I was thinking, wow, this sounds super fun. Like, this is something that I think I could do. So then the idea started rolling for Boston Balling. Recorded my first episode in December 2020, and here we are now, 2.5 years later, and it's just going as well as it's ever been. And I can't believe it. And then it's opened up a lot of opportunities for me. I mean, the Locked On Podcast Network, I've been familiar with for a long time. They have some fantastic, reputable people that host some of their shows. They even do shows for college sports now. They have fantasy shows, they have betting shows. So they're really expanding their presence in the sports media field. They're one of the most listened to podcast networks in the world right now. So to be able to be a part of that and share my passion for my favorite team with their listeners is fantastic. But I also, don't want to lose my listeners who have been loyal to me and my content since the beginning. And that's why you're all here. So, I brought you all on here to listen to me ramble, and I hope people aren't bored yet, because this is definitely interesting, kind of talking to myself. But I wanted to just let you all know that Boston Balling is here to stay. I don't plan on dropping Boston Balling because I'm doing the Daily Red Sox podcast. I do encourage you all to follow Locked On Red Sox and listen to my takes on them on that show, because that's where I'll primarily be sharing all my Red Sox based content, my thoughts on the team. I'll be bringing guests on that show like I do here to talk Sox. And obviously, a lot of you keep up with me on Twitter at Gabby Hurlbut 10, and you know that during games I have some mental breakdowns during games when the team is not performing. So that all is not going to change. I'm still Gabby. I'm still here. Boston Balling is going to be arranged a little bit differently in that it won't really feature Red Sox content, just because I'll be having a daily show where I'll just be talking Red Sox every day. I still plan to do Boston Balling episodes as much as I can. I can't make promises on once a week. That is still going to ultimately be the goal, is to continue once a week dropping an episode. But I still plan on bringing cool guests on to talk Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, anything else Boston sports related, unique athletes within the Boston sports scene that I'd like to feature. So that's all still going to be in the cards. So I promise you, I mean, Boston Balling's the OG. I would not be here today without it. It really has helped me to establish myself within the Boston sports community, and to be, somebody who people want to listen to and want to come to. And I've had people come to me and say, you're my go-to when it comes to Boston sports content. You're the first person that I look at and think about when big news breaks in the Boston sports community. And you're the first Twitter account that I go to if I miss something. And that's all super cool to me, because I do work really hard to really make this what it's become, and hopefully what it continues to be. And I still have a lot of goals for Boston Balling. I mean, I have some cool guests that I've been interacting with, and I'm working on locking up for the show too. So for the most part, things won't really change. But if you do want to hear my Red Sox takes, definitely subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on your favorite podcast streaming platform, because I will be there as well. And, any of their other shows too. If you have another favorite team that you like, that you're interested in listening to their show, definitely check that out too. I am definitely going to be doing some collabs with some of the other baseball hosts on there too, previewing some series when they play the Red Sox. So it should be a lot of fun for sure. And, I'm really looking forward to it. I think this opportunity came at a very opportune time in my life. I mean, I'm working full time in sports. I really enjoy my job. It's been a great experience for me. But this is also just something else that I can just add to, my resume, and continue to keep building up the ladder, and be able to keep, you know, establishing myself even further, and connecting with more people, and, making connections that I didn't think I ever would make otherwise. And I can tell you right now that Boston Balling for sure has done that for me. I've talked to some really, really cool people, really well known people, and I plan to continue that on Locked On Red Sox too, and just giving people an insight into what about the Red Sox can you not learn just from Googling something or from looking up a player's stats, like what is it about them that um we can learn more about that we can't really get from the internet. So that's kind of my goal that I want to bring to everybody with that show. And when I started Boston Balling, like I said before, never did I think it was going to turn into what it has. But I'm really, really looking forward to still being able to continue to talk all things Boston sports like I've been doing for the last 2.5 years and be able to provide the best content that I can for everybody. I think one of the things that I will say is that, having 2 podcasts is definitely fun, and it's a lot, but it's what I enjoy doing, and it's what I'm passionate about, and I can't really see myself doing anything else. So, I'm super excited to have this opportunity and kinda continue to, do both for you and just really bring you, the audience, the best content that I can. I'm open to, you know, suggestions as to what you'd like to hear on a show, any guests that you'd like to have on that you'd like me to speak with and you want to learn more about. I can't make promises for sure on if I can get them, but depending on who the guest is, obviously I always try my best to reach out to people and just get a wide variety of guests that I can bring on here. So definitely keep those ideas rolling. Anything you want to learn about something, like if you have a question about, a player, like are they going to be moved in the off season? We can definitely talk about it. I can bring somebody on who might be an expert on that area of, working with the organization and internally, what is the front office thinking about certain things. So definitely don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at Gabby Hurlbut 10, on Instagram at Gabby_Hurlbut 10, or you can find me on Facebook at Gabby Elizabeth. Or Boston Balling has its own Facebook page as well, which a lot of you already know about and have listened to episodes through it too. So I'm available on a lot of different platforms to be able to contact. Um, and the other thing I wanted to add when it comes to all this is never be afraid to aim high and have big goals for yourself. Because if you had asked me when I was in high school where I thought I would be at this point in my life. Obviously, nobody knows. Like, that's always a weird question to ask a high school kid, but never in a million years would I have thought that this spot is where I was going to be. And to be able to, go back to what happened with ESPN and getting laid off and thinking about how I was then to how I am now and worrying that I wasn't going to be able to work in sports anymore, which is my passion, to now being able to call sports my full-time job still, while also being able to do Boston Balling and now having another fantastic podcast that I get to host. Doing sports all day, every day was the ultimate dream for me. And I'm living that every day and I love every second of it. And whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you're aiming to do and that you want to, you know, succeed at in life, don't be afraid to do that. Like don't be afraid to just showcase your skills and be aggressive and reach out to people and network, network, network. I mean, I spent so much time on LinkedIn when I was in college and even still to this day connecting with other media professionals that are in the industry because you never know who knows who or what type of opportunity is going to come up for you. And even with doing the podcast, if you do a podcast, just know that you never know who's listening or who's going to come across your content. So you always want to put your best foot forward every single day. And some days are going to be harder than others. I mean, one of the biggest challenges for me that came with starting a podcast when I did start Boston Balling was just booking guests. Sometimes you will have a guest that will back out at the last minute and it's just too late to fill the spot. And then you simply have to, figure out another way to do it or just not have an episode that week. And for me, because Boston Balling is so important to me, at the beginning I would get really upset by that and it would bother me if I was like, well, I can't, provide the audience with an episode this week because my guest dropped out at the last minute. But some things are out of your control And you do just have to realize that. And, for me, I have so many ideas and so many things I could work with. And Boston Balling, you know, I started as the type of show where it's a discussion. I have a guest, I bring people on, we interact about whatever it is in Boston sports that we're talking about that day. And I really like that format because I think it's really important to just hear other people's ideas and opinions and get other perspectives on things that are happening. So for me, I really liked that format. I will tell you that Locked On Red Sox is not going to be exactly the same. I will be doing a half-hour show every day, Monday through Friday. So you can look for that every morning when you're on your commute to work, if that's when you choose to listen to podcasts, or on your way home. The episode will be there every day. Like I said, I will be bringing guests on with me to discuss the team, but it won't be every day. It won't be every episode. But again, I have a lot of unique ideas up my sleeve that I'm going to bring to that show in terms of just what I want people to get out of it and how I format the show every day so that it's a little varied and it's not the same thing over and over again. Because yes, it is nice sometimes to talk about, if the team played a really good series against a good team, that's fun to talk about. But every day, we're not going to be talking about that. So if you, really want your daily dose of Gabby of the Red Sox, definitely check me out on that show. And with Boston Balling, I still have so many things I want to do with this show and so many things I want to accomplish with it. So the plan going forward from here is to continue to just do it as normal, like I've been doing it, just minus the baseball content, and be able to just have people feel like it's a sense of normalcy and it still is what it is, and for people to not really, miss a beat with it, even though I'm doing the other show now. And I really look forward to, meeting more people because obviously, I'm stepping into a situation where the Locked On Podcast Network is so established. They have a pretty big audience. A lot of people listen to their shows. So just being able to put myself in front of that new audience and connect with them, like I feel like I've been able to connect with the Boston Balling listeners, that's going to be super important for me as I go into this new role because, a lot of those people who listen to that show don't know me and don't know that I enjoy pineapple on my pizza and that my favorite movie is Pitch Perfect, or that you know like my favorite Boston sports athlete of all time is David Ortiz, even though that's a pretty, obvious choice for somebody that's my age. But there's a lot of things about me that people don't really know. And I think as I'm going forward here, you'll start to learn more of those little things about me and little details about me. And I want to know that about all of you too. Like, don't be afraid to reach out and be like, hey, Gabby, like pineapple is disgusting on pizza and I don't know why you like it, because it's fun for me to have those types of conversations with people and just talk about things other than sports too. Because obviously, like I said at the beginning of the show, we all love our favorite sports teams. We all love talking about them, but it's always good to step away from that and talk about other things too. And I'm happy to, have those types of discussions with you and be able to bring more of that into the show, both shows, I should say. So that's kind of the general initial plan going forward. I just wanted to bring everybody on here to just explain all of that in detail, what it might look like for all of you going forward in terms of a Boston Balling perspective. Like I said, just tell your friends and family if they, want to hear more Boston sports content. Check me out, follow me, because I am not going anywhere, and I know how important, my audience is to me, and just how much you guys have really, really helped push me and really made this into what it is. And every time I go on social media and I have messages from people asking me, like, oh, what did you think about, Jason Tatum's performance in game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, or, something like that, it really reminds me of why I do this. And ultimately, it is to have those types of conversations and those types of discussions with people and really share my thoughts on certain things that happened. And, obviously, us as Boston fans are disappointed with how the Celtics season ended. We won the championship this year. And, obviously, they started off very, very slow in the series against Miami, dropped 3 games in a row. And, everybody thought they were cooked at that point, myself included. And then they bounce back and they win 3 games in a row and force a game 7 at home to toss up. And they did not look good in game 7 at home either. So, there's a lot of question marks, I think, now surrounding what their offseason is really going to look like. Um, in terms of who are they going to build around, they have to make some big decisions financially on what they're going to do about the Jaylen Brown situation. Are they going to keep him and try to keep the Jays together and continue to build around them and move some of the other pieces that they have? Do they keep the primary core together and just try to add a couple pieces that can be useful to surround them? Or do they make a lot of big moves and we see the roster be completely different going into this upcoming season? Hard to know for sure. I think there's, people as fans are going to be reactionary when a game is over and when a season is over. And obviously, with the way that the Celtics season ended, it was upsetting for all of us. But you do have to think logically about this team moving forward. And, I don't necessarily see them just basically scrapping the roster and starting from scratch. I do think there's a chance that they extend Jaylen. I think they really like having the combination of the Jays. I think with the right coaching situation and the right pieces around them, those two can win a championship here. And that's obviously the goal. So I think it's going to be an interesting offseason to just see what they do decide to do in terms of who do they move? Who do they keep? We know they're keeping, Joe Mazzulla on as the head coach, which is, I think, he did show some signs of weakness in the playoffs. He showed some signs of strength in the playoffs. I think a lot of it was, he had to get his feet wet. He was a first year head coach. The expectations shouldn't have been that high with him. I mean, going up against a coach like Eric Spoelstra in the Eastern Conference Finals, who is a Hall of Fame coach and one of the best in the game, and probably the best coach currently, is tough when you're a first year head coach. And I give the Heat a ton of credit. I mean, they're resilient, they're tough. Jimmy Butler is a bucket. And, they have a lot of players off their bench that really stepped up in that series and got them to the finals. I mean, it's going to be interesting and fun to see how the rest of this finals play out. I really like Jokic and the Nuggets. I think they're a really fun team to watch. So I give both teams a ton of credit that are there. And with the Celtics, it's easy to get frustrated after the way that ended. And trust me, like, I'm with you. I'm very frustrated myself, and I wish that things had turned out differently. I really thought that after how they looked in game 7 against Philly, that was the energy, and that was a wake-up call for them, and they were going to come out with energy to start the series against the Heat, and unfortunately they did not. And things did not work out in their favor. But, they are still a really good basketball team, and I think they just need to know what kinds of moves to make. I do trust Brad Stevens. I like him in the position that he's in. I think he needs to definitely bring in some size for sure. I think that was a blatant issue. I mean, they just got dumped on the boards. Like, they were getting owned on the boards. So that was one of the biggest standouts for me. Something that I think they could do. I could see Marcus Smart potentially being moved. I think obviously, he has his moments where he's great and he has his moments where he's not so great. So I think a more consistent point guard could be good for them. I really like Derek White. I think he had a great season this past year. Wouldn't be surprised to see him stay or go, kind of mixed on it. So I think there's a lot they have to think about going into this offseason, but I think they are aware of the talent that they have. And the best thing about the Celtics to me right now is how high their ceiling is. A lot of these guys are still young, and Tatum and Brown especially. I mean, if they do keep Brown, both those guys are young. They do need to get some more talent around them. I don't think they can just run it back with the team from this year. That's just not enough to me to be able to compete and go all the way, in my opinion. But their ceiling is definitely high. And I think that's something that they can definitely, utilize and could work in their favor. So there's definitely things to be excited about and optimistic about. I think Miami came into the playoffs and they were just hot. I mean, they beat the number one seed, the Bucks, then they beat the Knicks, who were looking pretty good prior to that, going into that series. Then obviously they ran into the Celtics and they beat them too. And you can't hate on the process. Obviously we all have our feelings about the playoffs and how it turned out for the Celtics, but it's hard to not credit them and give credit where it's due. I mean, they've had a hell of a postseason run so far. It's interesting that they're an 8 seed and they're all the way in the finals. I think, ultimately I have the Nuggets winning that series. I think ultimately they're going to be just a little too much for Miami, but I do think they'll make it interesting. So hopefully they do. And that's just the fun of it. That's also the fun thing about being a sports fan is you get to look at all of these moves and you get to look at just all the possibilities and kind of see, oh, like what direction are they going to go in? And I think, you know, there are people on Twitter who are going to say, blow everything up, just trade everybody and just kind of try to start from scratch. But the Celtics don't need to do that. They're not like far off from a championship. It might have felt like they are this season, but their own inconsistencies and getting in their own head was the biggest reason, in my opinion, for their failures in the playoffs. I think we saw multiple times instances of a team that, when playing their best, could beat literally anybody that you put them against on the court. And other times where we saw a team that could get beaten by anybody because they were just causing so many turnovers and tossing up threes and forcing up threes when they weren't going in and not really thinking about the right shot to take and kind of getting in panic mode sometimes. And I think we saw that too much this season, even during the regular season, and it was just an issue that was never fixed. And ultimately I think it's what did the Celtics dirty. I think it is the reason for their downfall in the playoffs and ultimately why they didn't get to that next level. But that all being said, that stuff I believe is fixable. Get some more veterans in there. I don't think, I think Horford's going to be out the door pretty soon, but I do think his veteran presence was great for this team. You need somebody like that in the locker room who's experienced and can, really lead people that's been around for a while to kind of keep the younger guys in check. And so I do think they need more of that to balance out the young core that they do have. But I do think it's not the situation where you just blow everything up and you trade everybody because again, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, winning a championship is hard. So for them to have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals again, I don't like the idea of just, saying screw it and just kind of blowing it up and blowing up the roster and just getting rid of people left and right. So I don't think that is what they're going to do either. But I am certainly excited to see what angle the Celtics do take on that because I think there's a lot of mixed opinions going around on Twitter, my friends. A lot of people who are mixed on what the Celtics should do. I think that conversation started with the head coach and people thinking that, they should look at other head coaching options. And they didn't. And I understand completely why they didn't. I think, it's a little premature since it was Missoula's first year. I think he learned a lot in this playoff series. And I think it did show just because of simply the improvements that he made from game 3 to game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat. He was better managing his timeouts. He was, swapping in different players and changing things up a little bit. I think he started to understand a little bit more of his flaws and what he was doing wrong. And I think there's only growth for him going forward. So, like I said, obviously we're Boston. We just expect championships. But it is hard. Winning an NBA finals is really hard. And credit to the Nuggets, by the way, because they were the number 1 seed in the West, and they've been playing like it in this entire playoffs. They've looked like the team that deserved to come out of the West, that should have been coming out of the West, and they are just playing better basketball, than a lot of other teams out there, and that's what got them to the finals, and they deserve it. And it'll if they win the whole thing, then props to them. They lived up to that number 1 seed, but it's hard. It's really, really hard to win a finals, and I'm excited to see, what the Celtics do because I do think the roster looks a little bit different, but I don't think it's going to look as different as you might think. So we'll definitely see who gets moved, who stays, what they do decide to do. So that's that. I just wanted to give my little 2 cents on the Celtics here. While I have you all, because yeah, I hadn't gotten a chance to really share my thoughts since that playoff series ended. I know for me personally, when I was watching game 7, I was like, this is an absolute nightmare. Like, why are they wasting our time with this? And that game 7 to me was just a representation of how the entire season went for the Celtics rather, and the inconsistency. Because inconsistency is the biggest word that pops into my head when I think about the 2023 Boston Celtics right now, and just where they were at the start of the season when they were playing really, really good basketball back in October to how they looked now. There was definitely just some inconsistency in there, losing to teams they shouldn't lose against consistently, and then having really good wins against really good teams. So I think a lot of it was in their own heads. I was hoping they would fix that, and unfortunately, they were just not able to fix that in time. So I'll always bleed green, always. I know you all will too. It's frustrating, but they can bounce back next year and hopefully get back to the finals and actually finish the job this time. And then this conversation won't even matter anymore because we'll be like, oh, good. Like they won a finals, they found a way. So I trust that they'll figure it out. I really do. I appreciate you all listening to my little Celtics rant here on the show. But yeah, like I said, I know this was kind of a lot to take in, a lot to digest. I am super excited for the next chapter. I'm excited to continue to, elevate and open new doors and make new connections and really help the Locked On Podcast Network to continue to grow because, for everybody who's there, it's a family. It's a Locked On family. Everybody's in it together. And I hope to just help contribute to that and help them be as successful as they can be. While also learning a lot from the other people around me and becoming a better podcast host in the process. Because, it's you always want to be able to learn more and be open to just learning new things about how you can improve your craft. And most importantly, with me being the baseball fan that I am, and it always being, my love and my favorite sport, and the Red Sox being my favorite team in the world, I literally have a Red Sox wall in my basement of, a bunch of Red Sox stuff. I'm not kidding. They're special to me, and I want to show people who tune into the Locked On show that they're special to me, and I plan to make that happen. And not everybody loves baseball as much as I do, but that doesn't mean that you can't tune into the show and share some of that passion with me. At least I do encourage you, if you might have been interested in getting into baseball, but haven't really been able to get into it yet, definitely check out Locked On Red Sox and some of the other Locked On baseball shows, because I promise you all the other hosts on that network are very, very knowledgeable about the specific teams that they cover too. And so who knows, maybe you'll listen to somebody and you'll be like, wow, I really like this person and how they presented this content. And then you'll start following that team more. And, so it's really special to be able to be a part of something so cool and so special like that, and be able to be somebody who is sharing my passion on a different stage too, because that's ultimately at the end of the day what it's about, and being able to be part of something that you're proud of. And so I'm really looking forward to it. As always, you know where to find Boston Balling. You can find it here on Facebook, on YouTube, on any podcast streaming platform, Google Play, Apple, Spotify. And I also don't always promote this, but I will today because I just want to remind people that there is merch for Boston Balling. There is a link, it's bonfire.com. You search Boston Balling, everything will come up there. There's sweatshirts, t-shirts, v-necks, long sleeve shirts, different styles. They all come in different colors and sizes too. You can look into, what your preference is. My family all has them. My friends have them. People are riding in style with their Boston Balling attire. So definitely go on bonfire.com and purchase some Boston Balling attire if you would like. They'll just send it right to your house. And it's really easy process. And then you'll be supporting me and repping the podcast in the process. So I really would appreciate anyone who's interested in checking that out. And also follow me on my personal social media at Gabby Hurlbut10 on Twitter, at Gabby underscore Hurlbut10 on Instagram, at Boston Balling on Twitter, at Boston underscore balling underscore podcast on Instagram. And on Facebook, I'm Gabby Elizabeth. Boston Balling is just Boston Balling. And soon I will be promoting all the social platforms for Locked On Red Sox. I am currently, working on that transition right now. So I'll definitely be making an announcement as to when my debut episode is more specifically soon in the near future. But definitely follow those accounts too, because I'll be posting stuff on there about the team. And then obviously, whatever platform you're listening to Boston Balling on right now, definitely just subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on there too, because I promise it'll be a lot of fun. I have a lot of thoughts that I want to share, a lot of things I want to bring to the show. So I definitely encourage you to check that out as well. And again, like I said, Boston Balling is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It may be, not covering the Red Sox, but you can still hear my Red Sox thoughts elsewhere. So it's not like that's disappearing altogether. So I'm still gonna be here. Hope you all continue to tune in, as much as you have, because I really have you to thank for this. I really do, for me being where I am. And I know I say it at the end of every show, but it really, really is true. I mean, I would not be even close to where I am now if it weren't for the following and the listeners and everybody who likes to tune in. So I really, really appreciate all of you very much. I am excited to bring you some more content. Please feel free to reach out to me on social media with any questions you have or anything that you want to talk about. I'm always here, always love having discussions with people. So thank you for taking your time to listen to me ramble for however long it's been now. And I will bring you another episode of Boston Balling soon. Hope you all have a great rest of your night and take care, everyone. Love you all. Bye.